I guess this is just how it's going to work. The Eastern Conference Finals is going to get every good game, and the West is going to get every blowout. The Knicks come back once again on the road, another 20-point deficit that New York's able to come back by. And this was maybe the craziest one yet, considering the circumstances. Jalen Brunson had 4 fouls at halftime. Karl-Anthony Towns was getting in foul trouble in the third quarter. And the Knicks were still able to find a way back into this game. Indiana had their opportunities to really just put this thing away. You're up 20 in the second quarter. All momentum's your way. New York looks absolutely rattled. This felt like the series was dead. The series was over. Indiana could get a sweep. You have a dominating game 3 victory, and then, okay, I guess we have to play game 4. But that is not what happened. The New York Knicks are back in this series and now have an opportunity to somehow, some way, tie this thing up going back home.
Yeah, I mean, what a wild ride! Really, this series has just been that throughout, and what a better description of Nick's season than this game right here, right? You think you're left for dead, people are counting you out, saying, "Ah, it's done, it's over," and sure enough, here they come. They find a way, they get it done. Just chaotic, and it was kind of a role reversal, Kate. I think of you know game one in a sense where for whatever reason, Indiana kind of let their foot off the gas, got a little too comfortable, right? And then the Knicks just kept fighting. And I think Coach Thibodeau needs to be committed as well. He made some good adjustments. We saw, you know, uh, Mitchell Robinson get in there, and he was able to uh, kind of dissuade the plans of Hackimich, right? Because of how Tibbs deployed him. So I think that changed things fundamentally quite a bit. And just as a whole, this team kind of pulled themselves up and said, "Hey, we aren't going to go out like this."
Yeah, well, I think it's funny you mentioned some of the adjustments from Tibbs, and we'll get into that in a moment. But it was funny. Some people wanted him fired during the second quarter, and then after the game, it was okay. He knows what he's doing. Which,
Another master class
yeah,
by
which
Tibbs.
which
Yeah.
I don't know how you would fire a guy who got you to your first conference final in 25 years. That's one of those. I get the frustration, but then you end up winning the game. Indiana, by the way, if you go by the fun ESPN win probability, 96% chance to win the game with 2 minutes left in the third quarter with a 15-point
Mm,
lead. This was the first
mm,
game in the series where Indiana did not have an incredible 3-point shooting day, only 20% from deep. New York didn't have an amazing day, only 34%. Turnover battle, basically even. New York -1 there. Rebounding battle favored Indiana for the first time this series by 1. Everything was about even. And I mean, I think the guy who deserves the most credit out of all of this, and it's pretty obvious, it's Karl-Anthony Towns. A 20
oh,
point
absolutely.
fourth quarter absolutely just took over the game, especially when Jalen Brunson picks up his 5th foul. They're having to ride Jalen Brunson on the bench. I mean, there's a 6 minute stretch where the Knicks are without their best player. They're without the guy who gets your offense going. And what does Karl-Anthony Towns do? He takes over. He says, okay, someone has to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy to wheel us back into this thing and just do everything I can to get this going. And then some of those adjustments we talked about, we knew New York would be going into a little bit of a different lineup. You had mentioned it. Bring Mitchell Robinson in, put Josh Hart on the bench. But then also Landry Shamet gets 11 minutes in this game. DeLon Wright gets 13 minutes in this game. It looked crazy for a while that, okay, are we getting this desperate? But when you're playing a team as deep as Indiana, even if those are guys you don't want to throw out there as much, it turned into a good move. Landry Shamet, a plus 12. DeLon Wright, a plus 2. That turned into a positive for them. Just having someone who could stay a little bit more fresh on the court to compete with Indiana, that's a good move. I think those were all good moves by Tibbs there, and we're going to have to see how game 4 plays out because now it kind of turns into, if you're Indiana, you look at it, everyone who showed up needed to. Halliburton, every once in a while, he has one of those games where it takes him a while to get going. That happened here. Bad game for Nembhard, only 2 for 9. Miles Turner had some questionable shots, I would say, at the end of the game where I know you're 1 for 6 from 3. I know that you need to try to force your way inside. Instead, I'm going to take a 30-footer to try to see what I can get going here. It's just, that's not the shot you want. That's the shot New York wants. That's not the shot you want. And then Pascal Siakam, 17 points on the day. But I think the other key factor of this for New York was something shifted at that halftime. and they were able to force Indiana to slow way down. New York is a very slow team when you look at pace. They're bottom 10 in the NBA. Indiana, I believe, is number 8 in pace in all of the NBA. And so when you start to play New York's game, that's going to benefit them a lot, obviously. And Indiana just kept settling for ISO after ISO after ISO. It was crazy. Watching New York, where everyone's flying around, setting screens, there's motion in the offense. And then you go to Indiana, and it's Pascal Siakam trying to back someone down and 4 other guys just standing on the perimeter. It was nuts to watch. Where did the offense go for Indiana? Some of that's New York's defense, but some of that is just, can someone go set it? Can someone move on the court if you're Indiana?
Yeah, it's like they just kind of forgot who they were, right, when it comes to that offensive identity, which was very bizarre to see, like you said. And I think, back to Karl-Anthony Towns a little bit, because not only did New York get those stops and force Indiana to play their game, but what a potentially narrative defining performance for Karl-Anthony Towns. This is the guy that at one point was supposed to be the big dog in Minnesota, right? They move on from him. The reputation is him being a superstar, quote unquote, maybe took a bit of a hit, goes to New York, winds up eh, being second fiddle essentially to Jalen Brunson. Not that that's a bad thing, but when they needed it most, a guy that not necessarily has been looked at as clutch or somebody you could depend on in the big moments, all of a sudden delivers what could be his biggest career performance when it mattered. So if they go on to turn this series around and win it, like, my goodness, what a big moment that could be for Karl-Anthony Towns.
I mean, you would talk about a legacy defining quarter. Remember, 20-point fourth quarter. He had 4 points going into the fourth quarter. This was looking like everyone is having a horrible day for the Knicks. It's happening again. They still can't beat Indiana after all this time. Everything that could go horribly wrong is going wrong. The Knicks really did just make the conference finals just to get swept. And he put his foot down and said no. And I think that is something that is going to be looked back. This is the potential turning point of the series now. And if New York, I laid it out a little bit earlier, Indiana got complacent. And now you start to wonder how that impacts game 4. If you're Indiana, if New York gets out to a hot start again in game 4, like they did, we kind of talked about that, game 3, first 6 minutes would decide the game. New York was ahead after those first 6 minutes. And then it looked like that was not going to matter at all. But then it did. So that was technically right that we talked about that there in the weirdest way possible. But now New York has that opportunity to even the series up. And if you're the Pacers, I mean, you have to do everything in your ability to just forget what happened in that fourth quarter and just go back to playing your game, because there was clear evidence that was working. There was clear evidence that was working. Jalen Brunson had one of his worst games in the postseason, 6 for 18. He was not shooting well. Mikal Bridges, 6 for 18 as well. OG stepped up when he needed to, hit 4 threes. But it was just one of those days where it felt like, okay, this is the end of the series. I felt we were going to have to come on here and do Indiana's going to get as much rest as possible. If you're a Pacers fan, you root for OKC, Minnesota to go 7 now because this series is done. But now we have to have an entire new conversation and an entire new outlook on this, because we still have yet to see a home team win a game. Road team's 3-0 in this series now. If it gets to 4-0, oh man, it's going to start to be a little bit worrying for Indiana that you had the perfect opportunity. Everything went your way, and now you're back to square one.
Yeah, it's similar to what we talked about with the Thunder Timberwolves series, where OKC, you have a good chance to go in there and kind of put the foot down. You're supposed to be the best team. You're showing it through the first few games, and you let that slip, right? And you give a whole new momentum and confidence to the opposing team. And Indiana essentially did the same here. I mean, now if you're the Knicks, you say, okay, you take lessons from what worked in that second half. Karl-Anthony Towns is going to, I would assume, play with a lot more confidence, right? And if Brunson could just keep himself clear of that foul trouble, then all of a sudden the Knicks could maybe get back to playing a little bit of that bully ball that they were able to do so well throughout the season.
Exactly. And then also for the Pacers, I want to talk about real quick, Aaron Nesmith getting injured in the second half.
Yeah,
that did play a bit of a factor, I think, having one of your better harassers in there really get taken out. But he came back in the fourth quarter, looked as well as you can for someone who rolled their ankle a little bit earlier in the game. And so we'll have to kind of continue to watch that as well. That might play a bit of a factor for the Pacers. We'll have to see. But either way, this series just continues to deliver. Every game in this series continues to be good. And I don't know what trade we made that we get one good conference finals and then we get one great games only and one blowouts only. But that's apparently the trade-off we made.
Absolutely.
This is one of those I don't understand how that happens, Tyler. I really don't. It doesn't make any sense at all. But you know what? I'm glad that the Knicks and Pacers still continuing to have a good series. I thought for a moment, like, okay, Stars Oilers was already terrible today. Don't tell me we're gonna have two blowouts in the same day. Like, come on now.
No joke.
It was
Especially with the way the Western Conference Finals has been, you want one of those two series, whether it be the East or the West, to turn out to be a competitive series.
Yeah, you just want something to be competitive that you could continue to watch. And the Knicks and Pacers continuing to provide that. And Karl-Anthony Towns basically putting the team on his back. It's cinema. It's what it is. We need this to go 7 so TNT can keep broadcasting so we can have the final TNT game be a game 7. That's what I'm rooting for at this point.
For sure.
But folks, as always, if you enjoyed this video, made it all the way through, we hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and the notification bells will always be notified when new videos come out. Leave a comment down below. All those things only take a few minutes. It's free, and we really do appreciate it because you wouldn't think it means that much, but it really does in the whole YouTube sphere of things. At one subscriber away from 150. One subscriber away from 150. Can we get there with this video? 90% of the people who watch these videos do not subscribe. So we do appreciate if you subscribe. Then we can begin the slow march towards 200 as well. It'll be good. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star review over there. And folks, until next time, have a good one, everybody.